Dr. Bill Adams here, and do we have something special for you today? We have a new show called No Spin Live Australia. You guys in Australia are somewhat trendsetters. I think you guys actually contributed a lot to the understanding of the breast implant ALCL, but also you guys are making a lot of progress with this thing. There's cosmetic surgeons. We have the same thing in the United States, and these are people that maybe haven't done all the training that somebody that is a board certified plastic surgeon like myself in the United States, or where you guys are in Australia, but sometimes even go, in the most extreme cases, go to a weekend course and then perform cosmetic surgery. It's been certainly a problem in the United States, but there's a couple things that came across from in Australia that they're actually regulating this now, which I found quite interesting. And then also another article about how the term cosmetic surgeons was quite dangerous. I think the viewers would probably be interested in y'all's perspective on this. So Tim, lead us off.
As we discussed this before, I think you have to be very careful the way you approach government, because you have other people, the cosmetic cowboys, who say this is a turf war, and that they take out that chestnut all the time. So you need to approach this matter almost like a guerrilla warfare, as we discussed before.
This has been something that's been going on for a long time. And I mean, if you go back, I mean, our good friend Anand Diva just recently wrote an article about this in one of the papers, that with the history of the barber surgeon dating back to the 1500s. And then eventually it worked out, they realized that they wanted to separate from that, and they eventually, Henry VII it was, who got a college of, a guild of surgeons that then subsequently became, had medical registration happening in the 1800s. And the problem is that none of that has really kept up as the years have gone by. The fact is that society equates the term surgeon with someone who has a really high skill level and expertise after extensive training. The trouble is that if anyone can put that next to themselves, then that's misleading the public. And I think that's the real problem we've got. Both Tim and I have been presidents of the Australian College for Aesthetic Plastic Surgery. Number one was to try to get it so that major cosmetic procedures were only done in accredited facilities. Now, what that does is that leverages the fact that accredited facilities have a governance program which only allows properly accredited surgeons to operate there. Now, that's something that's gained some traction recently too. The other thing is that really the term cosmetic surgeon means nothing. And in fact, currently in Australia, your veterinary surgeon has more oversight than a guy calling himself a cosmetic surgeon. And that's a crazy situation. The funny thing is that what's really brought this to a fore from the point of view of our federal health minister has been a story, Bill, that I'm not sure you're aware of, but we had essentially a Chinese tourist come into Sydney, go to a friend's place where it was a beauty therapist, and inject something, we don't know what, into her breast, and she died. Now, the rumour mill says that was due to an overdose of tramadol, rather than whatever was injected into the breast that we don't know about.
Yeah, this Chinese person was a Chinese dermatologist.
Yeah, it was just such a horrendous thing that hit the papers, the media so heavily that it's really tipped things over the edge. Hopefully we can get something happening with it. In Queensland, we actually did have legislation saying that you couldn't use the term cosmetic surgeon, but it got appealed and turned over. So where Tim is in New South Wales is the kind of cutting edge at the moment, and hopefully they can make it happen. And then with the federal health minister's support, it can go all around the country.
Should the regulators, government or licensing bodies, should they be protecting the public? Do you think this is it really a public service and a public danger?
Well, Bill, isn't that their job? I mean, the answer is yes. You just have to, if you've got someone who's better trained, they're clearly going to get better outcomes. And I mean, even if the occasional guy who isn't well trained happens to have a high level of expertise because they've been around for a while, the problem is consistency. And their very job, the job that they're supposed to do, is to protect the public. And there's no doubt that if someone's not as well trained, you've got a higher risk of having issues. I just don't think they've been doing their job for a very long period of time. And as Tim says, you know, it's constantly gets swept aside as some turf war. Well, this isn't a turf war. This is about someone doing the job the way they should. I mean, do you think that the Civil Aviation Authority is just going to say, well, you know, you've got a light plane license, come and fly this 787? They're not going to let you do that. I don't understand why we haven't been more active.
And it's probably worse than your analogy. You know, these guys didn't get any surgical trainings. They don't even have a light plane license. They don't have a drone license. They might make a paper airplane. But Tim, I mean, why are not people protecting the public? Because it's not in our hands. It's basically the regulators, basically bureaucrats.
Well, there's a lot of things. A lot of it's complacency on our part too. There was a time that we accepted the way the state of affairs were. And, you know, as a corollary to what we were talking about before, we need to clean our own house.
The problem we've got here, of course, Tim, at the moment in Australia is that our government at the moment for the last probably 10 years has been in a mess. But the last 10 years, they've been all over the place, you know, and we've had multiple changes of prime ministers, etc. They're spending more time looking over their shoulder than they are doing what they're supposed to do and looking after the economy and the public. And, you know, until something absolutely hits the headlines, like this case of this Chinese dermatologist, then it doesn't come on their radar.
Cosmetic surgery is not a sexy topic for them. You know, it doesn't make any money for them. It doesn't change legislation in many aspects of what they want to do. But it is a public safety issue, and that is part of their role. And we need to at least shine the light and magnify the problem and tell them, look, this is not a really great situation to have at the moment. It's so unregulated. It's the Wild West, as we've said before.
Bill, you know, coming from the Wild West over there yourself, I mean, what's happening in the US with regards to this stuff?
Well, you know, Craig and I just rode my horse over to the studio here, so now could change clothes, and I can tell you that, you know, I think and this one, I want you guys to comment on this as well. But I think that what people view this as is it's a petty turf battle, basically. You know, that those plastic surgeons, they're just greedy, they want all the business, and they're kind of shut these other guys out, and they're doctors. But what they don't understand is that three of us are all involved in education, so we educate not only fellow surgeons, but we educate residents and fellows. And so I think what the regulators need to understand is like how long it actually takes to train somebody properly.
Well, the interesting thing is, I mean, most people coming out of medical school these days can't cut cheese. So the question is whether they're going to be able to, you know, cut humans. And the answer is no. I mean, as you know, we run a pretty solid fellowship program, and we even get some of our, you know, newly trained plastic surgeons who, when we're introducing them to aesthetic procedures, you know, it takes a month of holding their hand to really get them where they need to be. If you get a guy who essentially doesn't have that insight and doesn't have the mentor, then that's a very dangerous cocktail. And that's the problem.
Totally agree. I think that 10,000 hour rule is a very important one. I mean, the reason why we do 4 to 5 years training, depending on where you want to subspecialize within plastic surgery, is that we build the numbers up, and that gives us the experience, the knowledge, the skill set to look after our patients. And that's what we've always been trained to do. Don't you think as we get older, you know, genius lies in simplicity. The more we strip away of what we do, we make things simpler and simpler and simpler. Would you agree?
I absolutely agree with that. I mean, when we teach our fellows breast augmentation, it's like, this is how you do it, this is how you make the decisions, and this is what you need to do. And the skilled guys, we can get them really great in a week or 2 or 3. It's because it's simple. And a lot of them use some of the principles that Bill has astounded for, you know, put out there for a long time, as well as a few of our own nuances. But it makes it if you keep it simple, you know, the old KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid.
Thank both of you guys for your time, expertise. you know, I think even the American viewers will be interested in this. And if you want to see more of all of this, you can see it on theplasticsurgerychannel.com.